Is America on the brink of the next Great Depression? That's what we're talking about today. But before we get into the video, for today's brewski that I'll be sipping on is a new release beer, actually. It is the Real American Beer by none other than, hold on a second, Hulk Hogan himself. Cheers, brother. God, why did I do this?
Are in a silent depression. When you compare the Great Depression to today, this is going to absolutely blow your mind. In 1930, during the Great Depression, the average home in America was $3,900. The average car was $600, and the average monthly rent was $18 or $216 a year, and the average salary was $1,300 for the year. Fast forward to today, it is $436,000 for the average home, $48,000 for the average car, and the average rent is $2,000 a month or $24,000 a year, and we have a $56,000 income for the average American right now. So if you look back to the Great Depression, the house was only 3 times the average salary. Now it is 8 times the average salary. The car was 46% of the salary. The car today is 85% of the salary. And here's the craziest part. The rent was 16% of the average salary. It is now 42% of the average salary.
Mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. Now, I didn't double check these numbers, so take this with a grain of salt. But what I did check is the income, and the income was actually, for the average in 1930, was actually higher than he mentioned. It was like 4,000 something or 3,900. So if all those other average numbers are true for the car, the rent, and all that, then it makes our numbers look even worse. Look even worse. This beer's pretty good. Now, we hear this term a lot, the silent depression. Why are we saying the silent depression? Well, that's because we think that the media is telling us that everything is okay. Everything's going all right. We're moving right along. Everything's going to be fine. But to me, as I've discussed on my videos in the past, and we've listened to people's thoughts and opinions, times are pretty shitty right now. Like, I'm just saying it. Like, times are tough. Everything is expensive. Unemployment is actually on the rise, which we'll get into that in a little bit. Times are not looking good right now. And if we continue on this path that we're on, are we leading to the next Great Depression? What would they call that? The Great Depression number 2? The second Great Depression? I don't know, but I'm going to say this. Right now is the time to prepare for the worst. Cut back spending. Prepare yourself. Stockpile cash, pay off your high interest debt, pay off all your debt if you can, and become prepared for what's ahead. Because if what's ahead gets worse, times are even going to become tougher. Are you ready?
And I've seen 2 videos in the last week talking about the same thing, and they're on point, but they're forgetting one big fact. So I'm going to cover this right now. This is what a lot of people don't realize. Almost everybody I know realizes that life is more expensive now and that all of us are being outpaced by the cost of living. The cost of living has been skyrocketing for the last 20 years at least, and the rate of pay and salaries, basically our compensation has not been keeping up with it. Not even close. So all of us know this. Back in 2006, 2007, 2008, we went through that whole thing. And I remember how crazy the inflation felt. And I remember seeing a speech by Ron Paul talking about how it's not really the goods getting more expensive. It's just it takes more of our dollars because our money is becoming less valuable. That is true. All right. Now, little fact. Here's a fact you may not know. Maybe you do know this. The Great Depression. Okay, if you go back to 1930, 1933, that period. It was considered to be economically the worst time in the United States history. It was the time when everybody struggled. People were, eating rodents on the street. And if you go and do your math, you figure out that during the Great Depression, 1933, I think, was the worst year. If you take what the average income, 25% of the workforce was out of work, the unemployment rate, 25%. It's pretty high. But the people who were employed, the average income was between $3,000 and $4,000. That's a real number. Now, if you take that number, $3,000 or $4,000, go with whichever number you want, and you adjust that for inflation and cost of living to today's money, and it comes in right around between $88,000 and $93,000. Back in the Great Depression, people were struggling and starving because they were only making $80,000 or $90,000. Like, really let that sink in for a second. So now those two videos that I saw have said that. Okay, and that's a real thing. I get it. One of them said like $3,300 and the other guy said $4,000. But anyway, it's between $3,000 and $4,000. But here's what they forgot to mention. You know what they didn't have in 1933? All of the taxes and fees that have been piled on top of us over all these years, in the last 70 years. You guys know what I'm talking about, okay? We've got thousands of taxes that we're paying now. We've got gas tax, cigarette tax, soda pop tax, you name it. They didn't have that back then. If you just look at statistics, you're going to also find out that they added on income tax and payroll tax. Those are two new giant taxes. The taxes skyrocketed right after the Great Depression, and it compounded by 3 once payroll tax and income tax got added to that. So they basically tripled our tax, and ever since then they've been printing money like crazy, which is making all of our money less valuable, which is causing a bigger problem, okay? So not only would we need $80,000 or $90,000 a year right now in order to match what people were struggling with during the Great Depression, but right now we would probably need double or triple that to make up for all the taxes that we're paying, okay? All right, now it gets even crazier, because if you guys haven't noticed a trend, and I'm going to end on this note, there's a little stupid trick that our government is doing now, and you guys should be aware of it. We should be paying attention to it, and we should be screaming about this. The government has figured out that, okay, taxes are hard. Why? Because no taxation without representation. We have to vote on and approve taxes. You know what we don't have to vote on or approve? Fees. And they have figured out that if they just call something a fee, it's not a tax, and they can just make it up and charge it to us. Stop and think about all of the fees that you're being forced to pay. Now, I'm going to call bullshit on that. A fee is something that is a choice. I don't think that there should be any mandatory fees, because a mandatory fee is a tax. So I'm just going to call bullshit on that. And I think awareness is the first step. I think all of us need to be aware of what's happening, and speaking out against this is going to be the next step. Taking our government to task on this stuff. The transparency needs to be there, and accountability needs to be there. And these politicians that are getting elected that aren't actually doing anything to fix this problem, they need to be held accountable. I'm going to end on that note for this video.
Now, that was a lot, and there's a lot I want to discuss there. But the first one is the taxes. This is a very common topic that gets brought up in these videos when I'm talking about people having a hard time, expenses increasing year over year, everything's getting more expensive, people basically not being able to afford to live. Our government raises our taxes, takes more money from the American citizen, and for return for what? Higher national debt. The U.S. is sitting at a total national debt of $33 trillion. No way are we paying that back right now, if ever. We just continue to kick the stick down the road for future generations to deal with.
My God, there's a stick there. Somebody should move it.
Future generations such as myself, a millennial, the Gen Zers, what's the next guys? Gen Alphas, I guess, would be my kids. It's absolutely insane to think about how our government is doing so much wasteful spending, and we are doing nothing about it as American citizens. The wasteful spending that goes on in the Capitol, how Congress manages money, I don't know how they're able to survive. Well, I know how a lot of them are able to survive because crooked, shady deals going on. You look at some of the incomes coming in and the net worth of some of our politicians when they've started service, whenever they left. I mean, they're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, or tens of millions of dollars. You don't make that on an annual wage of a congressman or even the U.S. president. Yet the average American citizen is still having to front thousands and thousands of dollars and such a large percentage of our annual income to go towards the government for what? So that's the start right there. Now, to lead this back to the Great Depression or a future recession or the times we're in right now, the scary part the one figure that I'm watching is unemployment rates. Now, if we go look at the current unemployment rate, you can see it increased up to 10% back in 2008, 2009, the Great Recession. Our last big financial crisis opposed from COVID, which you can see here, the major spike there was around, I think, 14%. Yeah, almost 15% was the highest unemployment rate during COVID. Crazy times. Now, if we zoom in here, though, you can see unemployment rates have dropped. But why did they drop? Well, it's because trillions of dollars got pumped into our economy over this time period of 2020 to 2022. 2021, really. Actually, 30% of the history of the American dollar was printed in those 12 months. Think about that for a second. 30%, roughly 30% of the history of the American dollars was printed to stimulate the economy. Because they saw this and they freaked out. They're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So whenever there's a problem, just like what happened in 2008, the government just prints more fiat currency, pushes out the economy, and kind of just keeps kicking the stick down the road. That's not all you're doing is putting on a Band-Aid. You're not fixing the issue. Now I talk about unemployment rate. This is the rate I'm really keeping an eye on. Every time in history when unemployment rates skyrocket, something bad happens. And look what's going on right now. We are in January. We're looking at end of 2022. We were in the mid threes. It's pretty typical. Now it starts to increase, and as we get closer to where we are in current time, you can see unemployment is on the rise. Currently, as of July 2024, unemployment rate is sitting at 4.3%. Now, not an astronomically high number, but it is on the rise. So what I'm watching in these next few months is what's going to happen for August, September, October, November, and also on into 2025 and 2026. If unemployment rates continue to rise, as I'm hearing locally as I talk to people, more and more people are getting laid off. Companies are pulling back. Things are getting more expensive. Times are unknown of what's coming. Businesses and the consumers are starting to get a little fearful. Whenever fear rises, people tend to stop spending so much. Companies stop spending so much in payroll. People get laid off. Unemployment rises. People have to stop spending money, which can send the economy into a recession. But how far is that recession going to go? Are we going to go even further into a Great Depression? Are we going to see something like we've never seen in the past 100 years in this country? That's why it's so important to prepare yourself now, guys. So important. Now, for those of you that aren't super aware, let's do a quick little history lesson of the Great Depression and kind of what caused this issue.
Great Depression, an economic crisis that shook America in the 1930s. It all began with the infamous stock market crash of 1929, known as Black Tuesday. Stock prices dropped straight down, causing panic and wiping out billions of dollars. The crash led to a banking crisis. Many people had borrowed money to invest in stocks, but when the market crashed, they couldn't repay their loans. Banks closed, leaving people worried about their savings. Businesses faced overproduction and underconsumption. They produced more than people could buy, resulting in idle factories and a surplus of unsold goods. The crisis spread globally. International trade declined as tariffs increased, making it harder to sell goods and worsening the economic slump. Farmers faced their own crisis, overproduction and a severe drought called the Dust Bowl, which devastated farms, causing financial ruin and displacing families. Unemployment soared, causing fear and uncertainty. People saved instead of spending, which deepening the economic crisis even worse. The Great Depression was a complex mix of factors: the stock market crash, banking crisis, overproduction, declining trade, agricultural troubles, and loss of confidence. It took bold economic policies and the onset of World War II to lift America out of this devastating time.
So, what's going on right now in our world? Bunch of different wars. What's something that wasn't invented until the 1940s? So this was after the Great Depression that this product was invented, that we have today. That is one of the main reasons why I think people are still getting by, being able to, I wouldn't even call it this, but to survive right now, are credit cards. Let's take a look at this chart. Total outstanding credit card balance from 1999 to present. Look at what has skyrocketed in the past couple years. Credit card balances. People are living off and relying on credit cards to get by and to live in the society that we're living in right now. That is what scares the living shit out of me. People are racking up credit card debts to be able to survive and keep their current lifestyle. When all hell breaks loose and you can't make your credit card payments, what do you think is going to happen? This is a major problem. And who would get hurt the most is the middle class and the poor if that happens. I hate to say it, but it's so true. If you think times are tough now, times can get way worse. Way worse.
While there are concerns the American economy is headed for a recession which could bring down global growth, unemployment in the US has risen to a 3-year high of 4.3%. Experts are concerned the Federal Reserve may keep interest rates higher for longer as a result. That is going to have an impact on the ASX today, where there is an expectation that our markets will fall 1.5%, and that extends Friday's sell-off for a 2-day total that's as bad as it's been in several years.
Now, this video was pretty recent. It was whenever, I think it was on Monday, we had an opening. Stock markets kind of collapsed. I mean, I don't personally think it was a collapse. It was just a little bit of a correction. I mean, we still look at year to date. Markets are still way up. But the chaos that can ensue so fast in the stock market, that may be the first controlling factor that pulls the U.S. economy and, well, as the rest of the world into a major financial crisis. But here's also other things we're not talking about right now. Not just credit card debt, student loan debt. I mean, guys, the typical American citizen is massively in debt. And as typical lifestyle expenses keep increasing, it makes it that much harder for the average American. Yet we still continue to print money and we still continue to raise taxes. Something has to change. Something has to change. And if that continues to happen, we're going to see more videos like this.
I am so tired of living my life in survival mode because despite having 2 college degrees and making close to $80,000 a year, I still cannot keep up with the cost of living. I still cannot afford all of my bills every month and have to live paycheck to paycheck. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I am sacrificing my mental health, my time, and my energy to take care of people in their most vulnerable moments, and a lot of the time they do not make it. At the very least, I should be able to pay my bills. And for anyone who's thinking, oh, well, you shouldn't have chose that job, somebody has to do it. And you know damn well, if your loved one was critically ill, you would want somebody to take care of them, right? Something has to give. I cannot keep doing this.
Guys, I freaking love this country. I mean, I have a freaking American flag bandana, headband, whatever you want to call it. And I'm repping it. I am. Because I'm pro-America. I want American citizens first. That's what it comes down to. Like, that's how we built this country. I'm reading a book right now. I don't know where it's at. It's called Thomas Jefferson and the Tripoli Pirates. It's the Forgotten War that changed American history. Really good book so far. I just started literally this morning, and I'm multiple chapters through. I love America. I love American history, and I love my American citizens, even the ones of you out there that disagree with me politically. I still love you because I love what this country was built on. I love the spirit, the tenacity, the personality our country has. I love it. And I hate that there's this feeling out there that, it's you can't be proud to be an American anymore. You have women like this young lady we just watched the video of, that is struggling to pay her bills, living paycheck to paycheck. I had a conversation with my wife last night on the couch, and I'm like, babe, like I don't know what it is, but this is the first time I think in my life where I've really felt unease about what's going on in our society, in our economy, and what's to come. I just don't feel the greatest. Now, I want to be fully transparent with you guys. I'm still investing every single month. What I buy is basic market tracking index funds. I'm buying them every single month, no matter if the market is at all-time highs or if we're hitting the next recession and we're hitting, all-time 52-week lows. I'm also buying a little bit of Bitcoin, because I do think if we hit a recession, Bitcoin will definitely have a pullback, because people will start to pull money out of all their assets to be able to live, and in return, Bitcoin's price will go down in value. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it could happen, but I'm still buying it. And then also buying real estate, looking for more real estate, as well as lending money as well. That's kind of my investing philosophy right now for myself personally. I'm not saying that's what you guys need to do, but that's what I'm doing. There is power in owning a physical asset. That's what I love about real estate, especially even if we have, prices drop and everything. I'm trying to plan accordingly to not over leverage myself, to where I can withstand the times of 2 to 3 years of some major rough times ahead and tenants not being able to pay rent. Like, I'm trying to be okay to be able to survive that. I'm trying to withstand that. I'm trying to plan ahead, but also still grow my investments and not sit on everything just cash. Plan now, so whenever the tougher times come ahead, you can weather the storm. I love you all. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love America. I hope we see better times in the near future. I really hope we don't see the next Great Depression. I really don't. I want us to continue to prosper as a country. And I'd like to pay a little less in taxes. Cheers.